Hi, today my name is Natasha Davis Burns, and I will be telling you guys my story.
So, Miss Natasha, what is your story? Where do we start at?
Where do we start?
Like, so I want to know about your childhood. You know, how was you in high school? You know, what was your days growing up that made you who you are today?
I don't know if my high school days made me who I am today. Maybe they played a part into some of it, but I don't think it's what made me who I am today. As far as I can remember, very healthy child, did a lot of sports, a lot of programs in school, just a very active jobs, living life to the fullest, let me say.
Okay. So, what adversities did you have to face growing up? Or like just, not even just in school, like in your early adulthood, what adversities that you had to overcome?
Adversities. I wouldn't say, I don't know what adversities I would have to overcome, because I just don't look at things as being adversities. There are different things and challenges or lessons that God puts in your life, and either you let it define you or you don't. So I wouldn't classify anything as adversities. It's just challenges.
Okay, so you do have challenges, but there's sometimes like when you growing up and you figuring things out, because let's keep it $1. We don't know everything as, you know, when we turn 20 or 21. So when I mean by adversities, I mean, what did you have to learn that you're like, okay, this is real. This is real life right now.
Can't don't nobody owe you shit. Fact of the matter, I think we're sheltered as young people. We're sheltered by your family because they're obligated to love you. They love you because they love you, but nobody owes you anything. And once you begin to be a grown up or in that aspect of life, it's life, and that's life. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. And either, again, you make certain things make you who you are, or you use that shit and you tuck it up under your feet and you move on.
So when was it, or let me say, what age when you realize, okay, I gotta pull my it's together? You know, I can't depend on mama and daddy to help me. I'm on my own.
I've always been as long as I can remember and as far as I can go back, I've always been a kid that took care of herself or just adapted very easily to the situations around me. My mother was a single parent. She got married when I was around the age of 5. And no shot to parents, because parents only do what they can do with what they got, but I've always took care of myself if I can remember back. Cooking, taking myself to school, and this is at 5 and 6, riding bikes, setting alarms, washing clothes at 7. So I've always been a very adapting person, and I don't know if I was just born with that great ability to adapt, or it was just my grandmother that played a crucial part, maybe so, into realizing that you do have to, let me say, how do you say this? She made me realize early, at a young age, that sometimes you just gotta do it.
And what you mean by that? You just gotta do it.
You're gonna always do something fucked up. It's always gonna always be something that's out of your control. But at the end of the day, you just gotta do it. I was taught you gotta do it at 5 and 6. I needed clean clothes, or I was gonna be talked about. So whether I depended on my mom and them to do it, whether they should or shouldn't, I just did it. She just taught me to do it. And I don't know if that makes much sense to people, but I just was taught to do it. And I never took it as being something that was less than of my parents or they wasn't great. It was just some shit that I just learned to do it. And I never faulted anybody for not doing what I thought they should have been doing. Because the reality of it is, I don't know what the hell they should have been doing in the first place to fault anything.
Right.
So, you know, watching my grandmother, no, I'm not going to say watching, because I wasn't graced to watch who she was and the mistakes that she made, but I was told by my mother and everyone else, and her, she was a drug addict, she was on drugs, she didn't raise her kids at the young age, but she was always there in some capacity. She cleaned her life up, and for the woman that I knew and always known was a great lady. I didn't know that particular woman, but I did and was graceful to know the woman that despite whatever you do or whatever choices that you make in life, you don't have to stay in that. And you damn sure don't have to allow people to make you that person. I had a lot of people that talk bad about her, and I could have formed my opinion or made that be or judged her or held that against her, but it wasn't my place. And that was one thing she taught me. It's not your place to judge anybody or hold anything against anybody. Either you love a person for what they are, or you just don't love them at all. You have a choice.
I mean, those are very wise words, and I kind of, agree with that, because it's like, little thing that we watched yesterday. It got to be a hard yes, or if it's not a hard yes, it's a no. So, that's, it's straightforward.
It is.
So, I want to know about, okay, you have kids, right?
I do.
So, going into adulthood with kids, your first child, what was that experience? What was going in your mind? What was your thoughts?
Honestly, I didn't have any. Again, I didn't know what to expect. I was only expecting, I think, about how I was raised as a child. And you always want to do things a lot differently than what your parents did. And those were some of the things that, being pregnant, going into that, I always wanted something different from my kids. You always envision what you want your life to be, but life is life. And life is going to give you what it's going to give you, despite what you want it to be. And going into being a mother, I had no clue. One, I was young.
Was you scared?
No. No. I wasn't scared at all. I was clueless. Just say that. I was clueless. Naive. Because again, what I thought in my head things should have been is not what life gave me. So, scared was not one of them. Naive is definitely a word that I can say. I was. But in the beginning, I was what I was as a parent, just trying to be what I knew how to be and do the best I could with the resources that I had. Granted, was it the best decisions always? No, because I was still growing up myself. But I think now where I am, I think I'm a better mom than I started out.
So, what is the difference between now and then?
Growth, life lessons, consequences and choices and things that have happened is the difference between the beginning mom and today's mom.
Okay. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about, your condition, your Chiari. And a lot of people don't know about Chiari. Could you explain that for everybody can understand what a Chiari is?
I think before I dive into my Chiari story, it's just probably what led me to even being at the point of Chiari, malformation. As we do know, going back, how many years? Oh, we've been married about 3 years, 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So going back in the beginning of our relationship, I knew that something was wrong, but nothing ever, it wasn't as bad. My life was still life, and I was still living, and I was still dealing. I've never been a healthy person, but I've always been a person that learned how to deal with being unhealthy, because I didn't know what unhealthy was. Or, I'm sorry, I didn't know what healthy was. Let me say that. So the struggle that me and you went through, I feel like my body just kind of went haywire all within a short amount of time. We did doctor's appointments, or actually emergency room after emergency room visit, because of not knowing why I was tired, or my body hurts, or the migraines, or the numbness, or the seems like endless symptoms. Now, don't get me wrong, I've always had headaches and being clumsy, and we always just, as family diagnoses, oh, it's just, you're just clumsy. Everybody in the family is clumsy. Oh, you just bump into things, or just little things that you just learn to deal with. So I guess the first diagnosis that we figured out was I had fibromyalgia.
And what is that?
Fibromyalgia is basically the sister to lupus. And the best way I can say it is sometimes your body aches and your bones hurt as if you are a 60-year-old person. So some days I feel like I'm an elderly person trapped in a young person's body.
So when did you start, experiencing that?
Well, I've always had experience or had the body aches and the hurting, but when you're a kid, your parents just chalk it up to you're growing, you're okay, it's nothing that was taken too seriously. Come to find out that fibromyalgia is a hereditary type disease, and on my father's side, all his sisters, it is predominantly a woman's illness. Most men do not have fibromyalgia, most women do. And just found out that it's on their side of the family. So it's kind of hereditary, but we as black people do not talk about health enough, or don't go to the doctor enough. Let me say that. So that's what fibromyalgia is.
I mean, did it stop you from doing anything or any activities that you want to do? Like, what is some of the symptoms of it?
In the beginning, excuse me, tired. In the beginning, it didn't, to me, stop anything so much to say. It will be little things that I will be fatigued more days than others, but I thought I was managing. Within the last year or so, I think that it's gotten worse. It makes you tired, you're fatigued, you don't sleep well, your body hurts all over, you can't even open up things and just use your hands, and your day-to-day, it hurts.
And, okay, so I like to dive in a little bit more because, it's been many times that we went to the hospital and we tried to explain to the doctor, like, what's going on with you. And can you explain some of those experiences that you had with doctors?
Hard, very hard, because doctors feel that they're superior than the next man because they are doctors. Some doctors feel like they are gods, and they do hold your life in their hands. You sometimes feel like a guinea pig. You definitely feel unheard. And it was many of days that I was pointed out to be the crazy black lady, the over-exaggerated person of pain. One thing I can say, we as people, I feel like we should have more minorities as black people, as doctors or nurse practitioners, because we are not being heard as black women or black people. Our pains and our symptoms are not being taken seriously. And it got to the point where I just really had to start deep diving and pretty much getting on my doctor's nerves and start being referred to all different kind of doctors. I've been referred to pain management, back and spine specialists, hell, to the point where I've had psych referrals to where these people told me that I was crazy, that I had no business with being in pain, or I shouldn't be in pain because of my age, or none of these symptoms could be possible because they hadn't put it in the book, or they didn't have enough research on it, that it couldn't possibly be. Very frustrating. Almost to the point of many days where I didn't even want to go to the emergency room. I just literally said I would die at home.
So, I mean, going through that, like, that can be hard. Like, especially on your psyche, knowing that you know there's something wrong with you, but the doctor's not believing you. They treating you like you're up there just for the drugs. How do that mess with you mentally, and how do you push past that?
It messed with me quite a bit because, again, like I stated, I felt that if my voice was not being heard, that because I didn't have or wasn't paying out of pocket, have the correct insurance, or maybe I didn't look a certain kind of way, that I wasn't taken seriously. And I wasn't until the incident with my brother, to the point where I had to be physically assaulted and my symptoms becoming more symptomatic, actual MRIs, me actually pointing out to my PCP provider, asking questions, what is a Chiari malformation? Because many times that I've had an MRI, I always read my after summary reports of my doctors or things, and this was always on there. So me being who I am, I research everything. I researched a little bit about what these doctors were saying was there, but because you're in an emergency room, nobody wants to take time and look at that. If you're not bleeding or cut off limb or about to damn near die, they don't care in an emergency room setting. And I kind of understand, but I also feel like if you take a few minutes and lead a person in the right direction where they should have been, then they won't be in the emergency room in the first place.
Right.
But you're given this blank shit and throw it out there, and you're told to go to your primary and follow with your primary, and 9 out of 10 times your medical records and your primary don't line up. So you're never even getting addressed what should have been addressed. So fast forward to basically what I was saying is this Chiari malformation was always on my paperwork. And then I finally went to a PCB provider and asked her, what is this? And she truly told me she had no idea. No idea. A medical diagnosis and a whole doctor told me she had no idea what it was, but she Googled it and decided to send me to a neurologist. Which, because she knew it was out of her realms and she did not know what it was, but when she Googled, like I Googled, that some of the symptoms that I was having was aligning up with this Chiari malformation. So basically, Chiari malformation is something that you have your entire life. You're born with it. Your skull does not develop properly in utero like other people's does. And sometimes people can live with a Chiari and never have a single symptom, or maybe have small symptoms that doesn't hinder your life. And I think the day that my Chiari malformation was triggered was the day that my brother assaulted me and punched me in my eye. So that triggered a lot of different things within a short amount of time.
So let me ask you a question about that. Like during that experience with your brother, and also with that transpiring, it kind of like opened up a window for them to realize that you do got Chiari. So even though something tragic like that happened, something good came out of it, because now it's more, now you know what's like kind of what the problem was.
Yeah. Now I have a name for the symptoms. All this time people were saying that it was all in my head, and literally it's in my head.
Because doctors kept on saying it's in your head, it's in your head. Multiple times they kept like, no, all this is in your head, but in reality
it literally was in my head. That's the irony and the funny part about it. It literally was in my head. I don't know. Sad but happy all at the same time. Like you said, it definitely was not a great place to be in, to figure out that this was what was wrong with me, or for that to happen, to figure it out. I'm happy and then I'm sad all at the same time. It just didn't cause a Chiari. I will forever have to have optic nerve blocks, and that's basically numbing agents shot into my head just to stop some of the things, even after the surgery.
So what has Chiari, like when you finding out what Chiari is, how did that improve, your mental or your day-to-day life? You knowing, okay, this might be what the problem is all this time.
It made me way more aware. It made me way more conscious about my actions, my emotions, my feelings, my living. I used to feel very guilty for getting tired or being fatigued or not doing sometimes, and finding out that I actually have something that is legit wrong with me and causes me to be this way helps me with my family more, for me to be able to say, hey, I'm feeling this way because of this, or hey, I am short because of this. And I don't want to lean it all into the disease or the diagnosis, but it made more sense of who I was and it was making me feel. So now that, like I said, I know, and the symptoms are getting worse, so I'm just a lot more aware of some of the triggers. Like, it's a thing called Chiari drop syndrome, where your limbs or your legs will just buckle, or you'll just drop shit. And when things like that go on, I know to just sit down somewhere instead of trying to push through. So it makes you just sit down and be more aware. It also makes you more self-conscious of your falls, your slips, just the random crazy things that you might not have been a lot more careful. You're way more careful now because it could have killed me way before.
And I want to say this: a lot of people downplay what you have because let's keep it $1. You're beautiful, you know. You're gorgeous, you know. You're pleasant to the eye. But you know, they look at your beauty and they surpass your pain. You know, how does that make you feel?
Frustrated. Makes me feel very frustrated because, for the simple fact is, people think just because that you have a disability that you need to have deformed limbs, or you gotta be deformed, no offense, ugly may so to say, goes with it. But, or, you know, you gotta be frail, you gotta be these. And don't get me wrong, I have my days where I'm very fragile, I'm very frail, I'm very weak. But just being who I am, I hardly ever show it. But just because I put a smile on my face does not mean that with this particular thing that my head is not pounding off the rails. Just because I know how to be pleasant and still deal with pain doesn't mean that I'm not hurting. When you tell people, oh, I have a headache, they just think, oh, it's a headache. But with a person with Chiari malformation, it's literally pressure built up. And I really don't even know how to describe it. But some days it's just hard to think, hard to concentrate, hard to do your day-to-day. But most people with this illness learn to do it because they have been unhealthy their entire life, so they've learned to move through certain things. But I feel like people underestimate a person with Chiari malformation, very much so, as if it's just a headache, and it's not just a headache.
I mean, and that's what, you know, why, you know, I wanted you to talk about this, because a lot of people are not educated about Chiari, or, you know, fibromyalgia, if I'm saying it correctly, you know. But a lot of people, they don't know about it, and when people do have these symptoms, people just look past them like, oh, ain't nothing wrong with you, you're not hurting, or, you know, or like they say, it's all in your head, you know. And it's great to see that, you know, you're getting closer and closer to, you know, getting back to your day-to-day normal, what we classify as normal day-to-day routines, because now you have a surgery scheduled, right?
Correct. Now let's also put a claimer out there. There is no cure for Chiari malformation, nor is there a cure for fibromyalgia. So just because I'm having this surgery does not mean it's going to cure or fix. Now, it does give me a better quality of life. Does alleviate some of the symptoms, but I will forever have this condition. I am closer to the surgery, and basically the surgery is just going to make room in my skull, also decompress, giving room for my brain to be where I don't have a bunch of pressure and build up in my head. So yes, I will be having the surgery in 5 days, right?
In 5 days. So what are you feeling right now?
Mixed emotions. I think the idea of it is worse than maybe the actual surgery itself. I'm very confident in the doctor I have and his ability to do this surgery without a doubt. However, I'm always that, when they say it's always one in a million, I'll always be that million. And it's just like, what? But for me, I don't know. I think, you're never going to be prepared for somebody playing in your brain.
Right.
I don't. So, but I'm hoping, and I've made up in my mind that I'm coming out on the other side of this with a lot less symptoms than I have now. I'm saying I'm going to come out of this with a better quality of life than what I have now, because I'm so tired of being tired.
Look, I know you're not a doctor. I know you don't have a degree in medicine, but can you tell what the surgery is what the procedures of the surgery is, and what's going to happen after the surgery?
Well, let me say one thing about this surgery, where I'm going to tell you what I know about it, and I don't want to do the deep dive or the watch. Now, I watched how they did knee surgery, and I was okay with it, but the fact of the matter is, it's always been the stereotype behind messing with your spine or your brain. So I don't want to watch how the surgery will be, but from what my doctor says, they're just going to go into the back of my brain, my cranial, in the back, open me up, take out that first vertebrae, possibly take out a little brain and give me a little space, take out a piece of skull to give me also space, and so basically just to give me space. They're just gonna open up my skull, put a piece of plastic or dermal back there where my skull will be, and just allow that spinal fluid to flow that is being blocked now and not flowing. That's probably the gist of it that I so to say. Recovery is about 8 to 12 weeks. Maybe depending on how I do in the hospital. Hospital stay, maybe a week to 10 days. Again, depending on how I'll do after the surgery. Everything pretty much depends on how I take the surgery and I do after the surgery. So, I don't really know how I will take this surgery.
So, after the surgery, they say they give you, 2 months, 3 months still?
Pretty much to get your life back together, to start trying to go back to doing regular things. Again, this is your neck muscles. This is a part of your coordination. It affects your balance. It affects your speech and you swallowing. It affects your legs, your hand, motor skills. It's all your cognitive skills that this pretty much affects. So some people have to learn to walk again. Some people learn to talk again, feed themselves. Just kind of depends on how extensive things are, I guess, in my brain.
Okay, I gotta ask you something. So what would you tell the people, about Chiari or fibromyalgia, or, what advice would you tell them that what you've been through and you feel like, okay, if I would have had a little bit more knowledge, I would have did something a little bit different?
Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Do not be afraid to speak up about your health. Do not be afraid to question doctors, because they are human. They do not know everything. Do not be afraid to stop taking your medication if you don't feel like it is agreeing with you. It is okay to trust how your body is feeling. Also, if a person has a disability that they're telling you about that you cannot see, maybe be more sympathetic to either do more research and learn about it or ask them questions about it. But don't assume just because you can't see any deformity that they're not hurting in the same. It's almost like a person with depression. You don't see depression on a person necessarily, nor so to say, but they're depressed. And then you take that as seriously. So give a person a break with these disabilities. Also, help more with people. If this person says they're tired, then they probably are tired. Take their word for it. But what I can say is, trust your body. Speak up for yourself at all times.
Look, I know we're running out a little bit of time, and there will be a part 2 to this because we got to dive a little bit more into this, and we also will be coming back after the surgery so we can give a little recap on how the surgery went, what is the processes of healing now. So we'll be back. So Miss Natasha, any final words for today?
Yeah. So I will be, as much as my husband will be working or helping me do it, I would like to just document this experience, and this is the beginning of it, just talking to you guys a little bit about this. It may be a little scattered, but we definitely will touch more as I get closer. I do have a pre-op to make sure that surgery will go okay. You do have to cut my lovely locks that I have started growing, and hope to God we don't have to cut off all my hair, and we're just gonna cut off an undercut. But I'm also gonna film that and my experience on how I'm feeling for that. And I wanna be filmed when I come up out of surgery. So we'll see how I'm doing, or before and after. And see how long it takes me to bounce back to regular. But for the most part, I don't have anything else to say. This is a very painful flare-up day today. I'm really tired and hurting all over, and it's just a part of this here life. But for me, thank you for your time and spending the moment or evening with me talking about fibromyalgia and Chiari malformation 1.
Get the money with you or with your not. Get the broken with it with the pot. Your corn, I invest up in the stock. Left everybody went straight up to the top. Don't care like me or like me not. See the I spin,